This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and what I have for you today is a challenge lock that was pinned up for Bosnian Bill by Hermit in Idaho. Bill sent it to me after he was done with it, and after I picked it open, I went and took a look at Bill's video on this exact same lock, and that was video number 1035. And when I watched that video, I was struck by how two pickers could look at the same lock and approach it in such different ways. Now let me start out by saying that I am a firm believer that if the lock opens, then you're doing it right. There is no wrong way to pick it. But it does show, looking at how Bill approached it and how I am going to pick it, that there are multiple ways to approach the same lock, and as long as that shackle opens at the end, whatever you're doing is correct. So Bill and I both looked at that keyway and decided that a 50 thousandths pry bar was the way to go, though he used a straight one and I am using one that is slightly bent. Though interestingly enough, this bend in the top of the keyway tension wrench is actually an idea that I got from one of Bill's earlier videos. Bill used a 15 thousandths Praxis medium hook and was picking from close to the bottom of the keyway, something like that, as he was manipulating the pins. I decided to use a 25 thousandths standard hook and pick off the side warding at a bit of an angle. I find that it's a little bit more awkward than Bill's approach, but it does allow you to use a much thicker pick. And when you're using a thicker pick, that allows for more tension, and I prefer heavier tension whenever I pick. Which brings the other difference between Bill's picking of this lock and my own, and that's Bill used relatively light tension, and I'm going to favor some pretty stout tension with the exception of when I need to allow for counter rotation. So let's put the tension on and get to picking. 1 is loose, 2 is loose. Got to click out of 3, click out of 4, little movement on the core. 5 is loose. Okay, we hit 6, went into a bit of a false set. Click out of 1. Okay, counter rotation on 1, got him set. Okay, counter rotation on 2, lightening up on that tension, got him set. Nothing on 3, nothing on 4. Counter rotation on 5. I think that's all we're getting out of 5. And 6, nothing there. Back to the beginning. Nothing on 1, 2, 3, 4, up 5. Okay, I got a little bit more out of 5 and the lock opened up. Okay, let's take this guy apart and see what's inside. Let's get the pinning tray over here. And this Stanley is one of those strange locks that instead of putting the screw to take this bottom plate off down the shackle hole that is exposed, they put it underneath the non-exposed side. So we have to remove the shackle first. So let me get an Allen wrench that does that. Okay, now let's get this key. By the way, that key works very nicely. Now we're going to have to pull that spring out, and that's easy enough to do if you give a little bit of a twist on the core. There we go. Having trouble twisting it and pulling that at the same time. Let's see. There we go. And that exposed the screw down the other shackle hole, and that we need to get out with a different Allen wrench. Okay, and that got the lock open. Okay, let's see what it takes to get this core apart. Looks like a normal Schlage backer. So let's push that down. Okay, now let's get the key and a follower, and we should be able to take this apart. Okay, let's dump these key pins out. 1 is standard, 2 is a bit of a torpedo shape, 3 is standard, 4 is standard, 5 is standard, and 6 is another torpedo. Okay, let's take a look at these driver pins. 1 is a spool with a very rough belly to it. Then we have a double spring behind it. 2 is a commercially made pin with a different kind of spring behind it. Okay, 3 appears to be an upside down Schlage T-pin with a master wafer on top of it, what I think Bill would call a drunken spool, and yet a different kind of spring. Let's see, 4 is a standard pin with yet another kind of spring. Wow, that's some heavy tension behind that one. Number 5 is a homemade, serrated or double spool, not really sure what to call him. And we've got 2 steel springs behind that one. And then number 6 is I think that's a homemade, I can't tell. Yeah, that looks like a homemade serrated. And a very light spring behind that. Okay, Hermit, what a great job pinning this up, and lots of variety with the springs, with the pinning in here. Certainly a fun little lock. Okay, let me give you a close-up of all of this. As you can see with the key pins, we have 4 standard key pins in slots 1, 3, 4, and 5, and then 2 torpedo-shaped pins in slots 2 and 6. Moving up to the driver pin, 1 appears to be a spool with a very rough belly to it. 2 is a factory, commercially available spool. 3 appears to be a Schlage T-pin with a master wafer on top of it to make it like a drunken spool. 4 is standard. 5 is a homemade, I guess, deep serrated pin. And 6 is serrated as well. Then those springs, Hermit really varied the tension up. We have a double spring in 1, the different springs in slots 2, 3, and 4, 2 very stiff steel springs put on top of each other in 5, and then a lighter one in 6. So that's really interesting. Moving over to the core, we can see there is some countermilling in all 6 of the chambers, and that actually comes from Schlage that way. I'm very familiar with these locks, and so this appears to be a completely factory core. And while we're here, let's take a look at the chambers in here. Uh-oh. And I don't see any threading at all in here. Although there is something scratched in the side, and I have no idea what that is. Oh, we have an arrow. I guess that's the front of the lock. No idea what the scratches in there are. Okay, so Hermit, what a nice little lock. Thank you for putting this together. And Bill, thank you for sending it my way. To everyone else, if you have any questions or comments about this, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe. And as always, have a nice day. Thank you.